Okay, let's see. We are live, but I'm not seeing. Here we okay, I'm trying to get this straightened out. Let's see where I don't want this in the background. Let's hide the overlay and give
Oh, there we
that should have been
go.
in the background, not the front yard. All right, so there we are, everybody. Hey, welcome, welcome, welcome. It's so exciting to be here on LinkedIn, on YouTube, being live with everybody instead of pre-recorded, and just to know that we're going to have some amazing conversations today. I am super excited about our topic and about my guest today. So, the topic is about confidence, maximizing confidence for peak performance. And my guest today is Kari Schneider. So, Kari, welcome.
Thank you, Laura. It's fabulous to be here. I think this is a great topic as well.
It's something that I think is really at the heart of all of our success, of all of our lack of success. When we hold ourselves back, when we tell ourselves that maybe we can't do it, what if the fear of failure, of not trying something, and it is really the you know at the core, and it's amazing to me when you feel confident or don't feel it, how much it just seeps through your pores. People can smell it, and they
Mhm.
sense it in the nature of their interactions with you. So I'm really excited to dig deep a little bit, and I'm hoping when everybody else, as you're joining us, whether you're joining through LinkedIn, you're joining through YouTube, you're joining through wherever else, let us know who you are. Let us know where you're coming from. Go ahead, put your names in the chat. Share with us, where are you from? Where are you located geographically? And tell us a little bit about either your job, your role, your industry. We don't need the paragraph, but just the sense. Let's get an idea of who's here on the call today. And the more that you can share with us, anybody who's out there, anybody who's joining in on this conversation, there are 472,000 other things you could be doing right now. But you've chosen to come and join us. Why? What is it about the topic of confidence that made you say, you know what, I'm going to take some time out today and tune into this conversation? I want to get what out of it? And if you can share with us as specific or as general as you want to share, then Kari and I can have the opportunity to address that. We're watching the chats, we're watching the comments, we can see everything that you share, and we want this to be an organic conversation. This is not scripted. This is not a podcast with a flow. This is a chat. This is your chance to talk to people whose lives in many ways revolve around helping our clients feel confident and leverage that confidence for optimum performance and optimum success. So the more we know about you, the more we can help. So, oh, great. We've got people here in Wilmington, Delaware, healthcare leadership, people in Philadelphia. All right. Nice. Okay. A lot of, just tell us again, where are you geographically? What's your industry? Why are you here? And feel free to, you don't have to write like the whole paragraph, just to send it up. Feel free to just do like one point and shoot it in the chat, another point, bits and pieces. Yeah, inspiration, Holly, absolutely what we're going for.
I love it. Fixer and can't wait to be inspired. Healthcare leadership. Very, very powerful. This is very good.
Yes, yes. And look, in healthcare, my goodness, I mean, is there anybody who you would want to see unconfident less than your doctor? Like,
Right.
no, I really, really want them to feel like they know exactly what's going on. They're confident they're going to take care of me and help me to get better. Awesome technology leaders. Yes. Okay. From career
Beautiful.
strategist. Yes. Teaching women how to discover their professional superpowers. That sounds like fun. And we're going to have some conversations with you too. Jill. Okay. Finance leaders. Excellent. Welcome, Jill. I remember Jill. Love these people who I know. Katie. Awesome. And okay, Jim. Yes. Good to see you, James, once again. All right. So let's see. As we get going, I know this is the beginning of many people's lunch hour. So people are going to be jumping off their last meetings that ran over a moment or two, going to grab some food for yourselves. Feel free to get that coffee, get that water as we go. Sylvain, yay, welcome. Oh my goodness. Canadians, we're going international. And Kari, you are where now also?
Well, I'm from Canada, but I happen to be in Mexico right now. So that's my location in this moment. But yes, I would be normally from Canada.
Yes. Okay. So we've got we've got the entire North American continent, or most of
We're
it at
covered.
least, represented. Terrific.
We're covered.
Executive coaches, consultants I'm seeing joining. supporting
And
C-suite to be more confident and authentic on video. That's the world today, isn't it? So many people I meet feel like in person, I'm awesome. On video, not so much. Yes, it's
yeah,
like they
panic.
wanna rename themselves instead of having their name on the bottom of their video window and put it in a disclaimer that says,
No.
"I just want you to know, if you met me in person, you'd be impressed."
Yeah.
It's like, you can't do that anymore. You have to be every bit even more confident, charismatic, compelling on video than you would be. Hey, Chris Jacobs, excellent. Welcome from the Adoption Center. Everybody knows adoption, children, family life is all a huge part of my mission, part of my heart. So welcome, Chris. Check out adopt.org when you have a chance. Got really exciting stuff coming up to support the Adoption Center 50-year anniversary this year. Massive gala in May coming up. And John Dorenbos is going to be our super amazing guest speaker who also has his own history of foster care and adoption. Amazing magician. Do take a look at that while we're out. So let's see, insurance, finance, amazing people, all realizing that we have one thing in common: the need to feel, project, and leverage confidence. So let's see, let's get into the topic a little bit here. And I'm excited to have more people as you're joining. Don't forget, keep telling us where you're coming from, what your industry is, and why you're here today. Why is the topic of confidence inspiring enough to you to bring you here during your lunch hour or breakfast hour or dinner hour, depending on where you are in the world, why you're here today. And so once again, welcome. I'm Dr. Laura Sicola with Vocal Impact Productions and hosting the podcast, Speaking to Influence, Communication Secrets of the C-Suite. If you haven't checked out the podcast yet, I highly and heartfelt encourage you to do so. Whether it's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, all those kind of usual suspects, as it were. And my guest today is Kari Schneider. She's a peak performance executive coach and optimal life strategist for professional athletes and business leaders, which I think is just absolutely amazing. So once again, Kari, thank you so much for joining me on the show today.
Thank you for doing this. This is something that is so wanted and needed in today's times. And it's something that, as you can see with what everyone's posting, it's something that can be used across all areas of life, not only in business, not only in personal life, because when we look at the list of people on, they're coming from all walks of life,
Right.
Insurance, adoption, medical, all of the areas.
Yes, absolutely. And, in my world, of course, communication confidence is at the core of my work with clients. I'm a leadership communication and influence coach specifically. So for me, I have to help my clients to speak confidently and to be able to project confidence even when you don't feel it, right? You can be super nervous for an investor pitch, for a board meeting, for whatever it happens to be, but you can't let that show through. You have to find a way to sound as confident as possible, because if you don't sound it, then it doesn't sound like you believe in yourself or in your own message. And if you can't project that, why would anybody else be confident in what you're saying? And the result, of course, when you can do that, then is being more persuasive, being naturally charismatic. And charisma is a scary word for a lot of people. They're like, I don't know that I think of myself as charismatic. That's like televangelist or Tony Robbins or, somebody bigger than life. No, everyone out there is naturally charismatic, has that natural magnetism. Somebody out there in the world loves you and thinks you're awesome and wants to spend more time with you. That's your natural charisma that they see. So how do we figure out how to tap into that and pull it out so everybody else sees and feels it? Because when you can do that, you become more credible, you're more inspiring. That's what presents that image of leadership. That's how people see you as a leader. That's what gets you the promotions. That's what helps you to land the clients. That's what helps you to hear yes more often. And that's really what we all want, is just to hear yes. So Kari, tell us a little bit about your world and the role that confidence plays in peak performance.
Well, it's really interesting hearing your description of how it serves so many people. And it brings back a memory for me, because I have a background of physical performance coaching at the highest level of sport for many years, for about 2 decades. And so I was a high performance coach for national and Olympic level athletes. However, if you haven't seen me in person, I'm a tiny human
Let's hear it for the bigger, larger than life
the
people in
tiny
the
humans.
podcast world. Yes.
Yeah. So, being a tiny human, I used to be the head strength and conditioning specialist for the men's and women's national volleyball teams. So my two tallest athletes were 6'11", roughly
Wow.
6'11". So for many, many years, I was a top level strength and conditioning professional, exercise physiologist, biomechanist, and coaching people from that standpoint. And I transitioned into coaching executives, not only from the physical standpoint, but the mindset standpoint. So I've been coaching mind, body for many years. And to your point, confidence has been a massive player, not only for me personally, especially working with top leaders in business and the highest level of sport, but especially for them. If you want to perform on a world stage against the best in the world in sport, that confidence factor is massive. If you want to deliver in the boardroom or to grow your business, if the confidence isn't there, there's going to be a problem, because the opposite of self-confidence is self-doubt.
Yes.
And so if you're not feeling confident, there's typically some self-doubt at play. And when that's there, then everything's shaky. It's not just the thing you're working on. It's not just that particular project or that particular meeting. Everything else is shaky because it's self-doubting. You're doubting everything you're able to do. Whereas on the flip side, confidence, that elevates everything else. And to your point, you know, there's research around faking it till you make it. There's all sorts of things
God, I hate
there.
that quote. Oh, that
I was
phrase.
just, I
No,
knew that
no
was
faking. No faking. It's not about
no,
faking.
it's
Oh,
creating. It's
yes.
creating. And there are steps to create confidence. And part of what we do in coaching is really distinguish between humble confidence, between confidence, self-confidence, overconfidence, and really being able to distinguish those levels of confidence allows someone to understand, okay, now I understand how to create confidence in this particular scenario so that I become effective and create the results that I'm after.
Yes. Yes, exactly. And so when we think about that, what's one step, what's one really fundamental rule of thumb that you can share that you'll do with your clients when they're really feeling that doubt, when they're really feeling that, oh my gosh, what did I get myself into? Oh my gosh, I'm about to step into the biggest meeting of my life. And they just feel the heart racing. What's the first thing people should do that will help just to get a grip?
Well, this is the most common one, but it takes a little advance work,
Okay.
and it's being prepared. The more preparation someone's put in, so for instance, if you take somebody going to the biggest, best world stage, we've got a Winter Olympics that are about to start.
Yes.
So some of the athletes that are there, I've personally worked with, and those athletes might have prepared like crazy and still feel nervous to go into an event that has an unknown outcome.
Yes.
But when they remember the preparation that they've put in, the work that they've put in, the leaving no stone unturned in all of the methodology that had to happen to lead to that event, then that reminds them, oh, wait a second, this is exactly where I'm supposed to be. This
Yes.
is exactly what I'm meant for. So the nerves in the moment always dissipate when preparation has occurred ahead of time. So I think most people know preparation as one of the steps, and it is something that, oh yeah, well, I've done this. I've prepared for this. And there are other ways to develop or create confidence, but in the moment when you've remembered, this is who I am, this is what I'm meant for, and I've put the work and the preparation in for this. So
Yes.
now it's just time to execute.
And everybody on this call, you're here. I'm recognizing more and more games. John, great to see you. Mike, great to see you. My goodness, it's been like, what, 30 years since we connected initially. Amazing. We were really, really young. And that's actually true. We went to school together. Amazing to see so many people that I am recognizing from all over the world. And I know you're all here because you are exactly what Kari just described. You are leaders, you are experts, you are people with decades of experience behind you. So we get into those moments where it's a high pressure situation and we somehow forget that. Like we just look at what's maybe at stake and we get into what I like to call the death spiral of what if questions that goes through our minds. Like, what if I forget what I want to say? What if they ask a question I can't answer? What if I make a mistake? What if I trip over my shoelaces, which is less of an issue here, but nevertheless, that what if world. And then we end up just convincing ourselves that all of that, or at least if not convincing ourselves, utterly forgetting, erasing from our memories the fact that we do have all that background, all that experience, all that preparation. So if nothing else, I love that. Just remind yourself, no, I got this. I've been doing this for 20 years. I spent 6 months preparing for this presentation or for this opportunity or for this whatever. How long did it take me to land this client meeting? How long have you been hounding that person? How long have you been trying to build your prototype or whatever it is? And now it's here, it's worked, you're ready to talk to your investors. So you have to remind yourself. And if nothing else, I would even suggest, and Kari, tell me if you would agree with this, take some time, 20 minutes ahead of time, and just literally write down a list. Remind yourself, articulate for yourself, make a bullet list. I don't care if it's in Microsoft Word. I don't care if it's on your Remarkable pad. I don't care if it's on a freaking Post-it note, but literally force yourself to write it down. And if it's on a Post-it note, stick it right next to your camera. Seriously, stick it right next to your camera and remind yourself of all the background you have that makes you go, oh yeah, I am ready for this. I was made for this. I do have this. It's so funny to see the nerves element. And I'm glad you mentioned that. I think I want to dive a little bit deeper into that. The challenge of handling the nerves when they arise, because I mean, for my clients, I know many of them, especially those who are a little bit more concerned about public speaking. They really hate the thought. They'd rather have a root canal than be in front of more than 5 people, live, virtually, or otherwise. The idea of handling the butterflies. And they often people say, and I make them change the language right away when they do, I want to get rid of the butterflies. No, we're not going to get rid of the butterflies, because here's the thing. Your body does not know the difference between adrenaline that's from nerves and adrenaline that's from excitement. Adrenaline is adrenaline is adrenaline. So if you have no nerves whatsoever, there's not one butterfly floating around in your stomach, that basically means that you've stopped caring. The day that you have to go into an important meeting and you feel no butterfly flutter whatsoever, that's the day that maybe you ought to look for a different line of work, because you've lost your passion for it. You stopped caring.
Or you haven't grown enough lately.
Interesting. Nice challenge. Gauntlet thrown. Yes.
Yeah.
So what is it then? We want to get to the point where, of course, the butterflies are under control, where there's something that we use as a fuel to allow our passion to come through and to have our energy be more magnetic for our audience. We just don't want the butterflies to overrun the farm. So how do we get those butterflies under control? Do you have a tip for something to just sort of help steel yourself for that launch?
Yeah, you know what? It's going to be twofold. First of all, any feeling we have, any emotion that we have, whether it's sadness or confidence or excitement, any of those feelings come from a thought. The thought is going to create the feeling. However, we can put an emotional break on that's physical. And the physical break ends up coming from our body. And that physical break can be exactly what you did before you threw it my way, which is the deep breath that you took. So if we so there's a couple of things that we can do. And I mean, I coach achievers and leaders, and they're typically looking for business success. They're looking for relationship success, those types of results. However, this goes for the highest performing athlete or the person in the boardroom. Physiologically, we can all put a break on that kind of fast-paced, jittery, nervous feeling. And it's by using part of our nervous system called the autonomic nervous system, and specifically the parasympathetic nervous system. And what happens in this is that we use our breath. Now, most of us think, okay, just take a deep breath. but we can do a bit of a trick here that can be a little more powerful, and it's specifically nasal breathing. And
Interesting.
when I say that, when we nose breathe instead of mouth breathe, it slows our breathing. When we slow our exhales, it brings us into our parasympathetic nervous system. When we're in our parasympathetic nervous system, we're in more of a rest, digest, confident, comfortable type of scenario. Now, it's not to say we're naturally going to be in a sympathetic, hard driving, push type of nervous system, which is that sympathetic drive. That's going to happen when we really want something and we're going for something. So that's normal. However, there's a zone that is where your peak performance is. If there's too much excitement and too much push or too much sympathetic and going over that, then we're not necessarily going to perform our best. There's too much jitters. It's just a little overexcited. So if we can bring it into that zone of excitement, that's where peak performance is. That's where every high-performing athlete or speaker really wants to stay in, is that zone of excitement, but not overexcited. So one of the things we can do is not only just nasal breathe, which not only slows the breathing, it signals the parasympathetic nervous system to step more into that. So it's greater, I'm going to use some terms here for the health people in here, greater heart rate variability, higher numbers on heart rate variability. There's a number of things that happen there. However, instead of just nose breathing, we can take it a step further. If people do one of these, kind of a hang 10, thumb and pinky.
Everybody do it out there. I can see you. I'm looking at
Right.
you, all of you. Go. Okay.
You put one on a nostril.
Okay.
And then you're going an exhale, an
Do it with us.
inhale,
Let's go.
and then switch, exhale, inhale, and switch, exhale, inhale, switch, exhale, and inhale. Now just pause for a moment. Now we could have done that for another 5 rounds to really get the effect. But any of you who did that for just a couple will notice that the breathing slows. Not only does the breathing slow, but by going from one nostril to the other nostril, we're also shifting from one side of the brain to the other side of the brain. Now, what this is going to do in a state of being a little anxious, a little nervous going into something, it's going to slow you down, just bring you into more of a parasympathetic system, go from one side of your brain to the other so you're not dominating on the left side, just think. And it really takes you back into a centered space where then you could tap into a thought that you've pre-created, like, I'm about to deliver my best to serve others, whatever the thought is.
Yeah.
But whatever thought that really has you center into what you want to deliver. And that not only physically puts on the brake of too much nerves, so physically with our body, but also mentally, we've then focused in on what we're about to deliver from a confidence space, because that thought's going to create the confidence as well.
That's amazing. And there's so many different breathing techniques you can look into, from, yogic breathing, diaphragm breathing, square breathing, there's how many counts in and out and hold and all that kind of thing. But it's interesting, the idea of switching nostrils.
I didn't think I was going to do that on this call.
I'm so glad
I
you
wasn't
did.
expecting to put the finger and the thumb on the nose in front of everyone. I wasn't anticipating that today. That wasn't a planned thing. However, it happens.
See, that's why we have these conversations live,
right.
Because you just never know what's going to come out. And I hope everybody out there is participating in these things, because why not? I mean, who's looking? Nobody. I am. That's who's looking.
Yeah.
I'm watching you. So go out and try these things. And it was interesting because, I love doing these kinds of conversations, these videos, these projections, et cetera. But I do feel the adrenaline from it, and it's not nerves. It's fun. It's excitement. I love seeing this many people joining us live. I can feel my heart going, but even so, by doing just that handful of exchanges back and forth, I could feel things like slowing down a little bit. And it's just amazing to realize, wow, there's actually a shift happening. And it's not that I needed a shift to happen, but it was there. It's absolutely undeniable.
It's the tool that you have in your toolkit, period.
Yes.
And so then when we have more tools, then we've got something to draw from, depending on what the situation requires. And if it requires just a little bit of a centering, then you've got it right there. So we want the thoughts as part of that toolkit. We want some other tools that we can tap into. And then as we practice them, we become more and more skilled at being able to tap into whatever we need at any given time.
Yes.
And then that adaptability, that ability to really go with whatever is coming at us. I wasn't planning on using that particular tool today, but because it's part of my toolkit and because I've used it so many times, then now I've got the skill of being able to pivot and shift and pick from the toolkit whenever I want, because each of those are part of my practice. And then the confidence goes up because it's like, oh, well, if something changes or shifts, I have something.
Yes.
I have something to draw from. And that just elevates the confidence to know that, oh, well, I don't have to rely on this one thing because I've practiced all these other things.
Yes.
And that's part of the preparation as well. But there's so many things that can be done.
Absolutely. And I'm curious, one thing caught my attention as you're doing it. Why do we start with the exhale as opposed to the inhale?
That's a great question. The exhale, it's the exhale that really is about shifting into the parasympathetic. The inhale, the signals that the change in pressure for the left ventricle, so for a specific part of your heart, the change in pressure of your diaphragm, those signal your vagus nerve. When that happens, that's what allows us to shift into the parasympathetic or the sympathetic. So if we do a lot of fast inhales, say you needed to just get yourself revved up, then that's going to trigger your sympathetic. So we really wanted to emphasize, whenever we're emphasizing that slow, deep exhale, that's bringing us to more of a calm state. And you might want the complete opposite. If you're heading into something that you really want to get revved up for, you're normally a pretty low energy or flat energy, and you want to bring your energy to a different state, well, then it'd be faster inhales, using the nose and the mouth, be quick movements. Those things would take you more into the sympathetic nervous system. So
can you practice that? Show us let's demonstrate. What's an example of a breathing technique that would
for you right now? You're like throwing me out there right now. Wow.
I know this is in your toolkit, and you can do this without blinking twice. I mean, you brought it up, so let's see what it looks like, because the other one was so interesting.
This is an example of her having confidence in me.
Yes, exactly. Look, we've known each other for, I don't know, 6 or 8 months now at this point, and every time I hear you talk, I'm like, oh my gosh, she's amazing. And so that's why I came here. It's like I need to make sure that more of my followers hear your advice. Follow Kari on LinkedIn afterwards. We'll put in links and whatever else, and just amazing content. So, all right, show us the technique. Enough stalling.
You're going to make me spit all over my microphone here. So, or snot, one of the two, whichever comes first. It's all good. So if you're doing a fast inhale and fast exhale, so the exhale being really forceful and out, so it's quick.
Out your nose, out your mouth.
Yeah, we're going to go in our nose and out our mouth just for this one. We could do various things, but it'd just be more of a.
Okay, everybody join in.
Now, don't be near a pool or water in case you do pass out or you.
No, we should get a little head rush on that.
If you get lightheaded.
Yeah.
But notice. You're going to elevate your heart rate. You're going to elevate your respiratory rate. You're going to go into more of a sympathetic. You're going to elevate your energy. So all of that is happening with that shift in breath. So again, a mechanical way to work with your confidence instead of only using your mind.
Nice. And for those, if anybody out there had the same initial, like pat your head, rub your belly, how do I coordinate this moment that I just did, feel free. And I'm guessing, Kari, you can correct me if I'm wrong on this one, but you can start it slower until you get the rhythm, the in and out, and go right. Okay. In through the nose, out through the mouth, lips rounded, do this, do that. Because originally I was like, wait,
clean your screen afterwards. Yeah. Clean your screen later. Yeah.
Absolutely. So that's one of the nice things about being virtual. You can clean your own. I don't have to worry about cleaning up after anybody else. So you're all on your own with that one afterwards. Have your tissues ready nearby. But start slow, get the coordination, and then you can increase your speed from there until you can really get that heart pumping. So interesting. Now, and something else that you mentioned that I think is really important is understanding that both grayscale and importance, kind of a kind of line of demarcation between what is enough of a good thing versus what's too much. We talked about certain levels of adrenaline. You want enough adrenaline to keep you excited and to keep you, energized and focused on and confident, and have that exude to everybody else, but not so much confidence that it crosses that line into arrogance. And of course, that's something that's going to be contextual. Who's your audience? What's the topic? What's the issue? What culture are you in? What country are you in? But all of those elements, how do you identify the line?
You know what? What's interesting from a physiological standpoint, that line is going to be discovered with practice. So you're going to find, so for instance, I've learned for myself, if I'm public speaking, I don't consume any caffeine. Like I don't even have a
Mm,
tea. I have no coffee. I'm not normally a coffee drinker, but I would consume some caffeine if I'm going to race or certain things. I might consume a little bit of tea. But I've learned that for myself because it will take me too far above that physiological zone. But if we're going to head into overconfidence, there's a a studied effect called the Dunning-Kruger effect.
yes.
If you've ever heard of that, but
Yes, yes. Tell everybody what that is if anybody's
well,
not familiar.
what I
So
love is
fascinating.
if you've ever heard the book Think Again by Adam Grant, he refers to it as being stranded on Mount Stupid. So, so the Dunning-Kruger effect is this. So being stranded on Mount Stupid is something that you can remember. So if you're stranded on Mount Stupid, this would be why. It would be the Dunning-Kruger effect, and it's an effect of overconfidence. It's when somebody gets so much confidence that they really believe that there's not much left for them to learn. And what it does is it stops them from growing. It stops them from thinking that there's more to understand or receive or be curious about. And so what it does is that's why he refers to it in this book as stranded on Mount Stupid, because you simply are stuck thinking that you're in this great space at this peak position. However, reality is that there's so much more to know. And without that humility, curiosity, or interest in learning more, you're stranded on Mount Stupid. That's the Dunning-Kruger effect.
Wow.
So yeah. Oh, look, we've got it. We've got the link posted in
Yes.
the chat. So if you want to learn a little more about that, and yeah, the book I referenced is Think Again by Adam Grant. So it's a fun read. It's fantastic for those of you who just want to explore staying open, understanding what happens with our mind and how we can really maximize understanding and connecting. And yeah.
Yeah, Adam Grant's work is amazing, and there's a number of other components to the Dunning-Kruger effect, which are also interesting. Sometimes on the far end, when you think about the 80-20, like people on the lowest 20% of certain areas may not even, there often is an overconfidence where they will identify themselves as being average in a particular area and realize, yeah, no, you're not. But it's just that you have so low knowledge or awareness of what actual skill looks like that you can't identify your lack
Where you are.
thereof.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. And that's another area of dangerous overconfidence.
Yeah.
And that's the only thing I can attribute to the people who go on to audition for American Idol or those kinds of shows, when
Yeah.
in the first early rounds, when you're watching the train wrecks of people who you're
Yeah.
going, oh my God, you actually think you can
You
sing.
don't
You
know.
actually
Yeah.
think like you're serious that you're putting yourself on national television to demonstrate how much you should never
Yeah.
be allowed to open
We
your mouth again in public.
Beautiful example, because it's the exact same in sport. We see that all of the time. And then also I've some of my clients who've been in high positions like partners in law, or the bitter complaints that could come sometimes when they really understand the limited experience of their protege coming in, and the higher level leader is so frustrated with the lack of experience, but this kind of arrogance of, oh, but I've studied so much and I'm so smart and all of those things, but they really don't have the experience. And it's, so we see that kind of scenario, just not understanding where you are because there's so little perspective of what really it means in that particular context.
I wonder, and I'm going to totally speculate here because I'd never really thought about it before, but it popped into my head, so I'm just going to share it. That I would think that there's a connection there as well in narcissism, in with regard to their belief about how empathetic they are, how nice of a person that they
Mhm.
really are, how helpful that they actually are. People who swear, they're always in the victim mentality is sort of where the narcissist lives, but in thinking that, well, I don't know why people always do this to me, or I'm so helpful and I'm so this and that, and
Mhm.
I don't get what I deserve in return.
Mhm.
Being way, way, way on the far end of that empathy scale, but thinking that they're actually quite generous and nice. And maybe they are selectively, but only when there's something in it for them and there better be
Yeah.
something in return.
Yeah, I've got some very personal experience with that. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And really, but for that narcissist, not seeing themselves as a victim necessarily, but simply seeing others at fault
Yes.
and not understanding that by continuing to blame others, they are in fact putting themselves in that victim space,
Right.
and they don't necessarily even realize that. So,
Right. And the confidence that, of course, that's where the overconfidence into arrogance comes in, because it's like, well, I had nothing to do with it. I'm not at fault ever. I'm
yeah.
never to blame, blaming
And
others that way.
and that complete opposite is humble confidence.
Yes.
It's the confidence, and it's such a beautiful thing in leaders where this beautiful experience of not um the humble confidence recognizes powerfully their own weaknesses and their own strengths, but their own frailties, and they're not seeking to be recognized or show what they're great at. They're actually they're a humble, confident person would quite literally wait for someone to discover what they might be great at. They're not necessarily going to tell someone, show someone, but they have that humble confidence. And in leaders, it's a real I think it's a beautiful thing. I've worked with some leaders who have this amazing humble confidence, and they don't care about shining their own, you know, successes. They don't care about tooting their own horn. All they really care about is continuing to serve, and they do so in such a peaceful, confident, kind way. That's usually how I've seen humble confidence show up in others, and especially in leaders.
And I think there's an important point of distinction in that, where some people may contextually misconstrue or misinterpret that kind of humble leadership, that servant leadership mentality, perhaps, and just being able to project that kind of confidence without needing to shine the light on yourself is not the same as not being able or not being willing to promote yourself, to advocate for yourself when
Yeah.
necessary. And sometimes there's a cultural divide. I work with a lot of people from more traditional Asian cultures, from more traditional African cultures or Middle Eastern cultures, where, especially for women in leadership, they've been told you must be humble, you must never promote yourself, you must never advocate for yourself. It's very binary, very black and white. There is confidence and there is humility, and confidence equals arrogance. And those are your only
Yeah.
two things. You can be one or you can be the other, but you can't have both. And it's so not the case. It's a question of, when is it time to speak up and to advocate for yourself? When is it time to throw your hat in the ring and say, you know what? There's this VP opportunity that just opened up, and I want it. And I
Yeah.
believe I'm
Yeah.
ready for it. I believe I can do it. And this is where you need to be able to say, it's not to say I'm better than everybody else and
Yeah.
you need to give it to me. And if you don't, you're stupid and I'm leaving and this and that.
Yeah.
Like there's ridiculous, but to not recognize it as this black and white, if I advocate for myself, not brag
Yeah.
about myself, if I advocate for myself, and those, you can say it's semantics, but it's so not. There's
Mhm.
a semantic distinction. Really recognizing, why am I choosing to draw attention to myself, in what way, during what conversation, with what person, for what purpose, and how do I get that person on board to recognize that I want it? Because especially in American business culture, if you don't say, I want
Mhm.
this, people will assume you don't.
Yes, and that's a key distinction because it's that cultural thing that's pointing to, you have to speak up.
Yes.
However, there's what we're dealing with though too is a double standard, because if it's a certain culture, if it's a woman versus a man, we don't even realize how much we are either judging or making assumptions. We can't even tell we are. It's been shown that if women in a leadership role use self-deprecating humor,
Mm.
that is seen as them being not as confident. Whereas if a man uses self-deprecating humor, then they're more of, they're in that, I'm paraphrasing here, but they're in more of that humble confidence kind of zone.
Mm.
It makes them more approachable. There's that kind of thing. But it's a different standard. People view that particular behavior, that way of being, differently in a woman than they do in a man. And so there are those nuances around confidence that it's not a blanket way of being for every culture, for every gender, for every situation, for every business environment or work environment. It's different in different cultures. Like a medical culture, I've drawn a fair number of medical clients, so whether they're doctors or nurse practitioners, because of not only my physiological background, but also that kind of achieving, hard driving, that same kind of mentality. But in those cultures, they don't want to believe that it's a hierarchical environment, but it very much is. And so taking the context or the work environment into account is so important in our distinctions of different types of confidence.
Yes.
Because in a medical environment or a high level business environment or a high level sport environment, there's this expectation that you have a high level of confidence and you're a go-getter and you're an achiever and you are doing all these things. But in different work environments, that's not the same expectation. It's not the same culture in different environments. So it's a very interesting thing, and we can give tips, we can give specific distinctions for certain scenarios. However, it's not always a blanket, a perfect blanket recipe across all work scenarios, all cultural scenarios, all
Right.
gender situations. So
Always knowing your audience. Know
exactly.
your
There's a lot
audience.
of nuance.
Absolutely. And there, how the notion of self-deprecating humor, and the double standards, et cetera, so much of that, especially when I'm working with women's leadership groups, one of the things that we want to talk about is apology, because there's, the whole stereotype about women apologizing too much for too many things. But there is
Canada,
a time and a
Canada here.
and but there is a time and a place to apologize. And that's part of that humble confidence, is being able to say, you know what, I made a mistake here. I,
Mm,
and it's somehow I took it out on you, or it had this repercussion, or whatever it was. But the line to me, and I think it's where, because I use self-deprecating humor all the time, whether I'm on stage or
yeah,
whether I'm, in podcasts, et cetera. I mean, look, you made a reference earlier about snotting on the microphone. That's a kind of self-deprecating
yeah.
humor. It's like saying, I'm normally in a formal situation, I would never use the word snot, especially as a verb.
Yeah,
But it's not the point, right? We're connecting. There's a time and a place. Know your
yeah,
audience, et cetera. And but the ability to apologize unapologetically. I don't mean inauthentically. I don't mean
yeah,
insincerely, but to say, with confidence, I acknowledge the fact that I made a mistake and I need to own it. And I own it here for you. I
yeah,
was in a bad place the other day. This XYZ happened, and I took it out on you in front of this other person. And that was completely wrong of me to do so. I apologize for that. And I'm going to go tell that other person, or I'll tell you in front of that person, you know what, it was wrong of me to do this. I don't believe in this. I don't advocate for or this kind of behavior. I would never want it, et cetera. And so I don't apologize for my willingness to own my
yeah.
mistake.
It's taking responsibility.
Yes, yes,
It's
but I do
really,
apologize for what I did, and
yeah,
that I am sorry for. And I think that's an incredibly important line, to be able to apologize unapologetically.
yeah,
Similarly, the self-deprecating humor is the same. There, you can, if you're doing it in a way where the humor is the strength in the phrase of self-deprecating humor as opposed to the deprecation.
Yes.
If there is a shame, if there's any flavor of shame in that self-deprecating humor, or like you're actually embarrassed that you did it, and it kind of seeps through,
Yes.
then it's just like that makes
It's
me
repelling.
uncomfortable. You
It's
know that.
repelling.
Yes, very
Yes,
much. It's a great term. It's
repelling.
repelling, and then it's not funny.
No, no.
That takes the
Yeah,
humor
and
out of
that's an interesting way, like, what you're pointing to in the responsibility, in the way of showing up, those are all marks and characteristics of leadership.
Yes.
And leadership is, when I'm making references to humble confidence and leaders that I've seen that way, confidence is part of leadership.
Yes.
And so, if there's however, that responsibility and that authenticity is so critical, because if you're really looking for a mark of confidence, whether you know that you're stepping into confidence, this environment is an example. It's whether you are willing to risk failure in front of others.
Yes.
So, we're demonstrating confidence right now because we're willing to risk spitting on the microphone and failing and looking, in a poor light in front of others. And willing to risk failure in front of others is often that mark of confidence. That's why public speaking is such a powerful measure of, do you have the confidence to do it or not?
Yes.
It's so that, like you're pointing to with the apology and the responsibility, there's marks of leadership, there's characteristics of confidence. And when we understand them a little more, then we can start to see it. Then we become aware of, oh, I'm really confident in that area of my life.
Yes.
And I'm really not so confident in that area of my life. And this is where I like to use with clients something that I call cross confidence. And it's
Okay.
simply, it's like, of course, I termed it that because it's like cross training.
Interesting.
In a high level sport, if I've got a Olympic level swimmer, they do the same movement patterns so many thousands and thousands of times. We would like to think as humans that just makes them better, but it actually breaks them down. Eventually, it'll start to break them down. So in sport, if we don't pull other movement patterns and utilize other ways of training, then that one sport will break them down. So we cross train and we use cross types of movement patterns. Well, in confidence, it's the same kind of concept. It's that we look at areas of our life, like you pointed to earlier, in listing off the things ahead of time. What have I really done well? I like to use, what do you really like about yourself? What have you really accomplished that you're so proud of that went really well? What have you succeeded at? Looking at that, and it might be in one particular area of your life or two particular areas of your life, and borrowing from that area and going, okay, if I've been able to build a business, if I've been able to raise a family, if I've been able to do that construction project, if I was able to lead that team, I know I've got a whole bunch of the skills and tools and preparation to use for this scenario where I don't feel as confident. And that's what I call cross confidence, is utilizing these other areas in order to build an area that is lacking, perhaps.
Oh, I love it. I love it. So everybody, your cross confidence, dig, where have you been confident before, and what transfers from that situation to this situation to remind you that there's no reason you can't be confident and successful again in this new
Yes.
situation. That's great. You know, my brain's going in like 14 different directions about how to use these last couple of minutes here. And first, I want to just take a moment and acknowledge everybody for sticking with us on the call today. Continue. If you have questions, put them in the chat, because Kari and I are both very willing to answer any questions that you specifically have. Where is confidence a challenge for you? Is it about the physiology? Is it about the projection? Is it about the performance? What have we not answered for you yet
Yeah,
today? What
throw
would you
some
love us to
questions.
address?
Yeah, throw some questions in there, because if it's something specific, then either of us would love to field something if we have some insight to it, for sure.
Absolutely. So feel free, whatever you've got, bring it on, and we'll keep our eye over there. And by the way, if you stick around for about 10 more minutes at the end of the call today, we have a special gift. I meant to mention this in the beginning, and oh well, brain spaced that. But I do have a free gift for everybody else. I'll show you where the link is, but I'll be offering a free copy of my book, the whole thing, not just like the first chapter or something, the book Speaking to Influence, Mastering Your Leadership Voice. So stick around. We'll post the link in the chat at the end for everybody to use. But it's all about the voice and confidence and that projection, confidence, presence, influence, all the good stuff. So stick around for that. So Kari, one of the things that you brought up in the beginning that I wanted to circle back around to was that expression that just gets me all sort of the hair on the back of my neck stands up. The notion of faking it until you make it, fake it till you make it. I think there's a difference between faking it, where as soon as you use that word, you automatically go into the inauthentic, that's not me. To feel like you're faking it automatically tells you that you're somehow out of alignment with yourself. So I think we need to reframe that notion. And for me, it's just about acknowledging how you feel, but deciding, what do you want your audience to see? What do you want your audience to feel? I mean, think of it this way. If you're, look, we all get nervous walking into whatever particular scenario, but would you walk into a negotiation? Would you walk into a presentation? Would you walk into a pitch and lead with an introduction that says, "Hi, I'm Laura Sicola. And by the way, I just want everybody to know that I'm terrified right now, and you all intimidate me, and I'm really afraid that you're going to kick me out of here and tell me I'm a moron and that I should never come back." Okay, good. So you got that. Now I'm transparent. Now I'm authentic. Now you know exactly what I see and feel and what's going through my mind and my heart. Do I need to say that to be authentic?
No.
Am I lying? Am I inauthentic if I don't tell you that?
Yeah.
No. Why would you have we all talk about skeletons in the closet. Why put them in a greenhouse? There's no reason for you to have to be that open to be authentic. That's ridiculous.
It takes what it does is it does a disservice, because it's the too much information. It's that if we're really serving others, if there's a directive or a result that needs to happen in whatever the exchange is, by delivering or over delivering what's really happening for us, then it's simply not following through with the objective of trying to serve whatever the situation is. We're making it all about ourselves.
Yes.
We're actually, by verbalizing some of the things that we feel, by verbalizing some of the things that we think, we're anchoring that even more deeply into our belief system.
Yes.
If we actually choose not to honor the thoughts that we're thinking, because so many of them, they're just thoughts. They don't need to all have the same weight. They don't need to have all the same impact. So if I'm thinking, "Oh, I feel brutal today, I can't deliver." Well, I don't need to honor that thought. I might feel that for a moment or think that for a split second, but I don't need to honor that thought. I can quite literally go, "Oh, I can see that thought is there, and that thought's not going to serve me, the people I want to serve, or this situation. Therefore, I'm going to tap into another thought that I really do believe, which is that I've got a lot to offer here, and I can't wait to see what results we can create together."
Yes.
And that's just as authentic, but it's choosing where to put the weight and choosing what to share that's going to be appropriate for the scenario.
100%. And that goes right to, and I think since you're all going to get a copy of my book, I think it's somewhere in chapter 6 or 7, I forget which one, but there's a section on what I like to call the 4-word secret to confident public speaking. And by the way, public speaking, let's redefine that first. It's anytime you're talking to someone other than yourself.
Which hopefully
so
it happens a fair bit. So hopefully you're not only talking to yourself.
I don't know. Sometimes that's the best conversation I have all day. Depends on what's going on. But when you are feeling those nerves about the public speaking, remember the 4-word secret. Here's a spoiler alert to whatever that little section is in chapter 6. It's the 4 words ready are simply, it's not about you. we get into our heads and we're all focused on ourselves. What if I do this? Back to that death spiral of what if questions, as opposed to exactly what Kari just said a moment ago, which is, why are you having this conversation? Why are you giving this presentation? Why are you creating this video? Why are you doing this webinar? Why are you trying to promote this product or service? Why? Because you believe that it will provide a benefit to others. And if that person does not hear what you have to say, if they don't buy the product or service, if they don't create this opportunity, if they don't hire you, they will lose out. You believe that it is truly in their best interest. You are there to serve them, not just to get them to give you money. If you are just there to
Yeah.
get them to give you money, again, you may be in the wrong business because it's not coming from the heart. It's coming from, wherever else. But that when you remind yourself that I am here to serve that person by giving them this advice, sharing this insight, providing this opportunity, offering this assistance, whatever it happens to be, that's a different place. You know that there's value in what you're offering. So come from the perspective of, I really believe this and I want them to get value from their time with me. You know you can provide that. Lead with that as your guiding thought, as your North Star. And that's suddenly where there's no faking it. If you
No.
truly believe that, there's nothing to fake. And the confidence, because of the passion, because of the love, because of the sincerity of that feeling, just comes through first, right off the bat. Does that sound right to you?
Oh, absolutely. Because, when I gave that tip earlier about preparing, one of the other ones is simple, 2 words: serve others. You want
Yes.
to build your own confidence? Serve somebody else.
Yes.
It's you being able to witness that you can help another human, another entity, another group in the world.
Yes.
Serving other people builds our own confidence. Another one, honoring our word to ourself
Yes.
builds our own confidence.
Yes.
So
Yes.
as soon as we're holding in our own integrity, honoring our word to ourselves, honoring our word to someone else, serving other people, those things are all confidence creators.
Yes.
Even if we weren't prepared.
Right.
So say you weren't prepared at all for whatever the thing is, you're completely unprepared, you have no idea, well, then show up to serve.
Yes.
Honor what you said you would do for yourself, to other people. Boom, you've just created confidence. And sometimes this is a way to derive confidence that is a really unusual one, I think, for most of us to think of. And it's learning about yourself from someone else.
Yes.
And what I mean by that is that oftentimes we can't see what we're good at because we're so busy judging ourselves. And especially as leaders and achievers, the primary groups I work with, so hard on ourselves.
Anybody resonate with that out there? Sound
Oh my
familiar?
God, so hard on ourselves. So then we can't see our own gifts. We can't see them. In
Yes.
fact, that's part of what lowers our confidence, because we can't see what we really have to offer the world. So what we do is we learn from someone else who we trust and who we respect. Maybe it's a teacher, a mentor, someone that we really care about. We learn from someone else what they think our gifts are. What do they think our gifts are? And that's another way to build our own confidence, because then when we see through their eyes, then we discover something about ourselves that we couldn't necessarily give ourselves. We couldn't see for ourselves. We didn't understand about ourselves. And that is very powerful for our own confidence and just being able to elevate it.
Yes. Yes. And I find that when you focus on serving others, providing that information, that value to others, it helps you to overcome the imposter syndrome, which is that momentary absence of confidence. And it can be more than momentary, but you're confident, I can get there, I deserve it, I deserve it. Then you get that role and you go, oh my gosh, now what? Now I have to reprove myself all over again. What if they think it was a mistake to give it to me? What if I do all these kinds of things? Do I really belong here? So the imposter syndrome is most simply defined as, now the definition went right out of my skull just as I said that, but the fear of being exposed as a fraud.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
when you go in there, not with I have to prove myself. No, I'm here to serve. Do what you're here to do.
I know someone very close to me who's just stepped into a brand new CEO role. And it's just like, showing up as that leader for that company, and then having to go, oh, and then questioning, hearing yourself, questioning yourself. And that's where coaching comes in, hearing from people
Yes.
who can see your gifts. All of those things come in so that you have we are our worst objective
Oh,
observer.
enemies. Yes. Critics.
We cannot objectively observe ourselves. I think there's a question here. How do you rebound from failure?
Yes. And
Flubbing a performance, misreading your audience in a pitch. How do you start your comeback? That's powerful.
so we're gonna that's a huge question, and we are kind of right at the top of the hour. So I'm gonna call that the bonus round for those who are who need to go on to their next meeting of sorts. We're gonna offer in the chat right now. I'll offer the link to our special free gift, which is if you want a copy of my book, which is Speaking to Influence: Mastering Your Leadership Voice. You can go to the website speakingtoinfluence.com/free copy hyphen STI for Speaking to Influence. Again, speakingtoinfluence.com/free copy hyphen STI. You can go there, get a free copy, PDF download, the whole thing just for you. Thank you so much for joining us today. And if Kari, tell everybody how they can reach you, how they can learn more about you.
So my website is theempowered.ca. And we do coaching for small and medium-sized businesses, individuals, and we have an amazing group coaching program that's an affordable option for coaching for employees or groups or individuals as well. So we've got lots there. So that's my website. You can reach me on there or on LinkedIn. I am on both places, Instagram as well.
Awesome. Awesome. So for those of you who've been here with us from start to finish, thank you again so much for joining. Bonus round time. So let's look at that question that came in about rebounding from failure of some sort, whether you flubbed a performance, you misread your audience. Where's your comeback? Where's that pivot point for the restart? Any thoughts about how to find that confidence for the do-over?
Well, this is where I really think that cross-confidence plays a big role. So taking a look at, okay, wait a second, I've had successes over here. However, that failure, oh my gosh, I have a habit of asking this question, and it's, what's great about this? What's great about this? If that failure hadn't happened, I wouldn't have learned that, my skirt was tucked in funny. If that failure hadn't happened, I wouldn't have learned how to research the audience more effectively. If that failure hadn't happened, I wouldn't have learned how to go deeper on this topic that everyone was interested in and I wasn't prepared for, or whatever it is. And so it's that question of what's great about this. It really redirects from the self-doubt, from the suffering, from the pain, and really allows us to use the pain point to find what's good about it.
Yes. Yes. And honestly, there's in many ways, if you take that moment and you can figure out a way to do not just a start over in a different direction, but a do-over, like what's the nature of, first of all, the word failure in and of itself is a word that I have tried to remove from my vocabulary in its entirety, because failure as a construct is abject. It's complete. And nothing is ever final except death.
Yeah.
And even there are religions who don't believe in that either. So nevertheless, what is failure is at best, okay, this was a missed opportunity. This was a mistake. It may have been a grave mistake, but there's always an opportunity to restart. And we talked about unapologetically apologizing earlier. Maybe whatever that flub is, you need to go back and say, you know what? I absolutely made this mistake. And, I completely, whatever it is, own it, go back and get that second chance, if nothing else. I mean, I made a mistake once. And what's interesting is that some of the feedback I got afterwards was that was the best part of the presentation that I did, where I was leading a training for Cisco, WebEx founders. And it was a live training, and on one of my slides on the deck that I was using had a picture of people on Zoom. And I've used the slide a bazillion times, so I didn't even think about it. And, I'm going through the presentation, the slide comes up. I didn't even notice it. All of a sudden I hear booing. I'm like, what the I'd never heard booze in my life on stage. I'm going, what the? And it finally dawned on me. And I went, oh, and I actually, what was I going to do at that point? So I joined in. I went, oh, boo, bad presenter. I've got to remember what's going on there. And then I said, you know what? Let me check. Did I screw up on the next one too? And I clicked, and the next one was a picture of a conference phone, also of a competitor to Cisco at that point. So there were more boos that came out at that point. And I joined in, and I stopped, and I said, you know what? Let's take a look at this, because I was teaching about speaking to influence, about having that presence. And so I was like, look, I own that I made that mistake, but let's look at why. I said, I spent a lot of time creating these slides and spending forever looking for decent graphics, images with good resolution that reflect what I'm looking for, et cetera. So let me ask you this. Why is it that why is it that in all the searching I did not find a good image available of a Cisco product that I could use up here? So let's fix it. Let's make this a win-win for everybody. Who in here? And it was an audience of about 100 sales leaders from across the country. I said, who's going to work with me and take responsibility for and commit to sending me a high resolution image of your products that I can now replace these images up here and use them moving forward? And about a dozen hands all went up. And I was like, okay, so do we have it? Are we good? Can we move forward? Here we go. And like, I could have tucked my tail and I actually prefaced all this by saying, look, I could do two things here. I could tuck my tail between my legs and run away, embarrassed that I screwed up this way, or I can make this a teachable moment. Let's make it a teachable moment. So here's what we're going to do. And we went, and I can't tell you how many people came up to me afterwards and said, I am so glad you screwed up. That was awesome. I needed to see you pitch your way out of trouble, and seeing how you worked that was the most valuable part of the full day training that I ran. So, and it was, you could really, that was a screw up, huge screw up, branding screw up, talk about it. But you can, and I apologized, but unapologetically, it's like, let's turn this around.
Yeah. And it also speaks to humanness.
Yes.
Like we forget that we're human.
Yep.
And there's a quick question in here that I think will speak to this too, but you're not going to have the perfect presentation all the time. You're not going to have the perfect pitch all the time. You're not going to land your message all of the time. And if you did, you wouldn't grow, period.
Yes.
And failure, in terms of going back and, you've removed that word, there's a definition of it, which is simply not reaching action taken towards a result that wasn't, the actions didn't obtain the result. Like it's so cut and dry. And when we take all the drama and emotion out of it and how we associate ourselves with being the failure, and then we just see, oh, it was action that didn't quite work.
Right.
When it's that, and we separate it that way, then we're like, oh, and we're human. So sometimes our actions don't always work.
Yes.
And that points right back to a question that someone put in. Kari, can you explain how self-deprecating humor exhibits humility and openness? It's not only showing that we're willing to make fun of ourselves, and also showing that we're human, but also showing that we're not afraid to. And that is an example of showing courage and being vulnerable at the same time, which is a recipe for developing confidence.
Yes.
So when I say, and I want to clarify as well, when we say self-deprecating humor, it's that kind of light poking fun,
right? Not,
as you distinguished, having, dripping with shame. We don't want the hiding, the shame, any of those things. It's the, I'm open enough and confident enough to poke fun at myself, and I'm human enough to allow you to see some of my frailties, and I can make fun as well. And so that's how it exhibits some humility, in that, I don't necessarily think I'm all that. I can even make fun of myself.
Yes. And
being open enough to share that. Share that, I'm human too, and I can make fun of myself.
And I think there's two distinctions, actually three, that all just sort of popped up real quick. So I'm going to rapid fire through them. One is the notion, and for me, looking at self-deprecating humor is the ability to take your content seriously, but not take yourself too seriously.
Yeah.
That's an important piece. And, you mentioned courage, the courage to be vulnerable, the courage to make these kinds of, comments or jokes or accept responsibility, et cetera. And there's a difference between courage and being fearless. And Brene Brown talks about this a lot. If you're familiar with her work, if
Mhm.
not, just go to brenebrown.com and read like everything she's
Yeah,
ever written.
fantastic
But
work.
right, or watch her TED talk or something along those lines. But courage is not about having no fear. Courage is about feeling the fear and doing it anyway,
Mhm.
taking action in the face of momentary fear. And with that, the other point that you made that was really important is that recognizing, okay, it's not that this is abject failure, it's that this was a bad decision, or this was a bad choice, or this was a bad result. We
Action.
tried something, it
Yeah,
didn't work, the
yeah.
action didn't work. And that's the distinction between being embarrassed and being ashamed. That
Mm,
embarrassment is saying, I did something bad. Shame is, I am
yeah,
bad. To be versus to do.
yeah.
That it gets to the core of your sense of identity. When you allow
Mhm.
yourself to feel shame, that's hard to break free from because you identify with it. When you realize you had one of those moments,
Yeah, though.
that's a moment.
Yes.
May be a little while to recover from it. You may have to, eat some crow or do whatever else, but you can recover from this. It's an action to be undone or redone, not about who you are. And the way that you handle that will define you. That's the who you are. So
Mm.
I think that's hugely important. All right, so we are about 10 minutes over. Kari, share one more time your websites, how people can get in touch with you, look you up, and you have an amazing retreat coming up like
Yes.
in 2
2
days.
days.
And
Yes.
I believe you told me recently that there was one person who last minute had to back out. So there is
Oh,
an opening
there's a
available.
room.
So if somebody wants it,
Yeah.
race to be that person to fill it. Tell us really quick, what is this retreat that you're leading and how can people learn more about that?
It is called the Zenith, and we are doing all of the things to really expand and renew our bodies, our minds, and our spirits. And it will be extensive in a gorgeous, luxurious space with a chef. So, cleaning up all
In
of the things
Mexico, yes?
in Mexico, in Sayulita, Mexico. So, it's a gorgeous, gorgeous place. Steps from the beach, 2 pools overlooking the ocean. So, we've got the accommodations that are magnificent. And my husband and I are coaching. It's going to be absolutely fantastic. So we have a room open if anyone is brave enough to get to Mexico within the next 48 hours. And we do that for the next week. And that can be found on our website. There's a top banner on the top of our theempowered.ca. It's .ca, not com. www.theempowered.ca. And the banner is at the top of the website for the Zenith to learn a little bit more. And it's very customized. There aren't a lot of details on that particular landing page simply because what we do is very customized based on the individual's needs, based on
Mm.
their goals, based on the direction that they want to take their bodies, their minds, and expanding their spirit. So very, very powerful.
Love it. So I just put it in the chat, Car. If you want to put it in any other links that you want to type in the chat there so everybody can see exactly what you want to include. And it is, so if you got value out of this hour, imagine spending a week with Kari.
Oh, and honestly, because we care more about serving than we do about hitting our price points. So if you know someone who needs something like this right now and you want to serve them and you want to pay it forward, then we are willing to make it a pay what you can scenario. We are willing
Wow.
to really, really meet you where you're at because we want to help those who really want to help themselves fill their cup, renew themselves, and expand.
Okay, so everybody out there, you need to go to this website. Kari, put your email address or whatever, however you want people to connect with you. If they've got questions or if you
Sure.
want them to go to your LinkedIn, whatever it is, please put your preferred communication means in the chat there for everybody else. If this sounds like something that you want, again, if you got content, if you got real value from an hour with Kari, then imagine what being part of a retreat on a beach in Mexico. I mean, if I could clear my calendar, would be on that plane tomorrow. So see what's available to you. If maybe this is the right moment, maybe the stars just aligned for you and you realize this is exactly what you've been needing, wanting, and looking for and didn't even know it. So take that one spot, reach out to Kari and see how you can do this. So let's see, other than that, and I would love for anybody who's still here with us on the call, who the diehards who are just giving us their time and their attention and your focus. Put in the chat, what's a takeaway from today? What's one of your biggest aha moments, a little light bulb that went off, a point of clarity? I would love to know what is something that you're going to walk away from here with a new perspective on confidence for yourself, inspiring it in others. Tell us what's a takeaway for you.
I love this comment here, our best, authentic, and evolving selves. What a beautiful way of putting that. Our best, authentic, and evolving selves. It's so true. Just being true to ourselves and also acknowledging that we're expanding. We are always adapting and changing to our environments, to what we create, to what we choose to create for our own lives. So it's very powerful.
Yes.
Love that.
All right. And feel free, keep typing in. What are your takeaways today? We would love to know. But otherwise, Kari, I'm so grateful for you spending your time. I know you're about to get ready to launch this huge week-long retreat, which is going to be amazing. I so wish I could go. So I'm going to have to take a rain check on the next one. But thank you for taking the time, share your wisdom, share your confidence and your humility and your humor and your wisdom with all of us today. So I've had so much fun.
This has been so beautiful. Thank you, Laura. Your platform is fantastic. And what you're sharing with everyone is certain to help whatever their situation is.
And to everybody else out there, this video will go, we'll put the archived version on LinkedIn and on YouTube. So share it with others, encourage others to watch it if you want to help them develop their confidence and develop their ability to impact and serve others. And if there's our topics that you would like us to be able to talk about here on the live platforms and elsewhere, feel free to shoot either or both of us a note through social media. Check out the website. You can visit mine at vocalimpactproductions.com. And again, I want to invite everybody to take a look at the podcast or take a listen as the case may be. You can check that out on my YouTube channel if you want to watch the videos of me having these conversations with my guests as we go. But otherwise, go to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, CastBox, all those kinds of fun things, and listen in, where each week I'm interviewing a leader, an executive from another company or nonprofit on the role of communication as an essential leadership skill. So with that, I again thank all of you for joining today, for following, connect, share, spread the word, spread the love. Kari, thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. If I can say one last thing, I run a podcast as well. It's for the empowered team. And what it means is that we're looking for all of the learnings that come from high performance sport and translating those into business and life. So they're pretty short usually, but I think that the interviews that you have in getting the experts and their expertise is so powerful. And we're drawing from the experiences of athletes typically. So if that serves anyone, it is on Spotify and iTunes, and it's called the Empowered Team Podcast.
Interesting. Okay. So can you put that in the chat and we'll make sure everybody's got that? Make sure it's in the comments as opposed to the private chat section.
I can't get into the comments.
Go ahead. You put it into the private chat and I'll move it over for you. That's great. And yeah, there's another note in there if you want to attend another LinkedIn Live. If you haven't done it yet, get on the mailing list. Make sure that you either contact Holly at Vocal Impact Productions or otherwise at our website, or just connect with me, send me a message on LinkedIn, and we'll go from there. And let's see. Okay, I'm going to share this. And it's called the Empowered Team Podcast. I'm going to copy paste. Here we go. So check out Kari on the Empowered Team Podcast or mine at Speaking to Influence.
And great work and initiative, Laura, in getting this live out there on LinkedIn. I know it's a new way of serving people. And so kudos to you for stepping into it. That's
thank you.
Fantastic.
It's been great to do it. And thank you for being the flagship what's the right word? The maiden voyage, I guess, of the vessel. So it's been great to break it all in with you. Thanks again, and we'll have to have you on and do another part 2.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
Have a fabulous retreat. Everybody else have a fabulous day. Looking forward to hearing from you soon. Take care.